You're good.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Good morning again. The title of today's presentation is Elevated Benefits, Building a Healthy Business from the Ground Up Through Wellness. My name is Mohammed Fatin Noor. I'm one of the business advisors at the SBDC. At the SBDC, we provide free and confidential one-on-one business consultation. If you're a startup or already have been in business for a couple of years and you require any sort of business related help, financing, or just even talk about how we can help you with the businesses, please feel free to reach us at the sbdcbrockport.org. You can follow us on our social media. Today we have a very special guest, Jen Nguyen. I hope I'm saying it right, Jen. So Jen is a wellness consultant from Smola Consulting, and she has over a decade of experience as a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and a certified personal trainer. Jen helps organizations of all sizes implement wellness initiatives that enhances employee performance and resilience. So with that being said, I'm gonna pass it over to Jen, and I hope you all will enjoy the presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fatin, and welcome everyone. And I also want to thank SUNY Brockport, New York Small Business Development Center, and also the Business Insight Center at Rochester Library for having me here with you this morning. And good morning. So, as Fatin had mentioned, this month's first Wednesday webinar is related to benefits and wellness and how you can build a healthy foundation through your business to help further grow a sustainable business model. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. So our goals for today's presentation will be to first evaluate strategic business value of workplace wellness. Secondly, we'll define wellness objectives that align well with your business mission and goals. And from there, we'll go through steps and strategies on how to implement cost-effective wellness initiatives to support your business growth. Um, I know there will be likely some questions throughout the presentation, so we're going to go ahead and you can type those questions into the chat box, and what we'll do is we'll answer those questions at the very end. As I mentioned, there will be some questions throughout the presentation. Would love for you to engage with us, whether it's through the chat or through emojis on the Zoom function down below. So please locate those items, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, a little bit about myself. I'm actually a Southern California transplant. I completed 4 years of nutrition and dietetics, education at Cal State Long Beach with a research background in sports, primarily sports nutrition, also supplements with collegiate athletes, primarily NCAA athletes. Shortly after graduating and during my undergrad, I worked with the Major League Soccer team, the LA Galaxy in Los Angeles, and also UCLA's sports performance nutrition team. The reason why I moved to upstate New York, because many people ask me, why would you move from Southern California to cold weather and snow, is because I love the snow. No. I actually moved here because of school. So I completed my dietetic internship through Cornell University. And prior to moving here, I actually needed a job to pay for living expenses and school, of course. So I actually got a job at Midtown Athletic Club. My background is I actually became a personal trainer before I became a dietitian. So I worked there as a fitness coach. And then shortly after graduating, I became a registered dietitian there and ran their wellness programs for the members at the athletic club. After graduating and completing my internship, I actually received a role and a position at Victor Central School District as a school dietitian while I was working part time at Midtown Athletic Club. And then I also worked part time at Highland Hospital as a clinical dietitian. So, sort of bringing all of my experiences together between fitness, nutrition, and also that clinical background. About a year after all of those positions, I actually got swept up by a food startup known as Sweet Pea Plant Based Kitchen, And so I was there for almost 5 years. So they're a local chef prepared meal delivery company in the area. And there I founded their nutrition coaching program where I saw hundreds of clients for one on one nutrition counseling and educated them on the benefits of consuming and eating a whole food plant based lifestyle to pair up the meals with the education and also educate the customers on how to start to cook on their own to either prevent disease or reduce their risk of certain chronic conditions. There, I also worked alongside with the chef to come up with new menu options. We had medical students do rotations with us and shadow to understand how nutrition plays a role in health and well being of an individual. And I did tons of presentations, just like this one, on the topic of wellness. One of my most notable highlights that I think would be relevant to this group is during my tenure at Sweet Pea, I actually got a chance to pitch on stage at the Grow New York Food Ag and Tech Business Competition, and we were one of the finalists. And actually did win $250,000 for the company. Since then, I ended my role there, and I'm now working with Smola Consulting as a wellness consultant. So I've been here for about 10 months now, and Fatin and I met when I was presenting at NextCorp back in December with my colleague Joe, who's one of our benefit consultants. And so when I started with Smola Consulting as a as a wellness consultant, I thought I used to work in a small business setting. I know that benefits is a really important piece of the puzzle when it comes to businesses growing. But what we found out from presenting at NextCorps is many small businesses actually don't have um, the funds or the readiness to purchase benefits for their employees because often it's a smaller team. And so, but when Fatine reached out to me, I thought, well, let's talk about benefits because there are free to low cost options for businesses to invest in and still be able to provide a sound program benefits and offering for employees that enter their workforce. So, my hope here today is to inspire you to not only take care of yourself and your team, but to also go through growing pains to make it manageable. So, hopefully, we'll achieve that here today. So before we jump into content, I would love to get to know you a little bit better. So please, in the chat box, share where you are in your startup journey or small business journey, whether you just started or you're thinking about starting or you've been in business. I would love to get to learn a little bit more about you. And I'll have Kay or Lily just share some of the responses here.
I'm gonna make sure that can anybody hear me okay?
It's a little staticky.
Okay. My headset is so I apologize.
That's okay. Yeah, so having been part of the Grow New York competition and now being in the same building as NextCorps, which is an incubator here in the Rochester area, I know we have a really strong region for food, ag, optics, finance and technology. So it's always really interesting to see what types of businesses are out there and, how this might apply to your business. So Whitney just shared solo fundraising consulting. Fundraising is a tough business, but kudos to you for spearheading that. Jocelyn, just starting business, though I've had an LLC for a bit. Really, really awesome. Great. Well, as a company grows from being a small business to a large business, many numbers start to change. And I've seen that, having worked for Sweet Pea and also we're still a small business now, but we work with a lot of large organizations in the areas. And on this slide here, you see some small business stressors. Many of those are these three that you see here are probably major ones that you all encounter related to finance, production, and marketing. And I'm sure you agree with me that you may encounter some of these on a weekly basis, if not a daily basis. With startups and small businesses, there are many, many growing pains that you have to work through. And those things actually never really go away, even as a large organization. So today we'll talk about how we manage some of these stressors, but let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these stressors here. So when it comes to financials, we're constantly looking at what does our consistent cash flow look like? How does the economy and the uncertainty of the economy affect our supply chain? What are some of those disruptions that we might encounter? And these factors may lead to difficulty in predicting our revenue or our runway. Lastly, under finance, and this is not an exhaustive list by any means. I just wanted to point out a few things that might be things that you're encountering. Lastly, we have regulatory compliance, which might be related to taxes, potentially product development. If you're producing any food products, there are tons of cross-state um, things that you have to understand, and also packaging that you have to understand what's allowed on the package, what's not allowed. And then when you start hiring, we start to look at benefits and payrolls related to compliance. And when you become a large organization, a 50 plus or maybe a 100 plus organization, benefits and payroll actually start to become two out of your three most costly expenses. So that's why we're talking about benefits today. Again, not the medical benefits, but at least the wellness side of benefits. And then the third most highest cost for organizations would be the R&D expense that companies might have. Secondly, we have production. So this, meeting deadlines and the demands of the market. Hopefully, if you are already in business, you already have a great marketing plan and have high demands to meet those needs. We also have managing staff that is a factor, hiring, training, and retaining employees, because we all know that if we don't have a system in place, that managing staff can take up a lot of time. And most often, we expect employees to be proactive and learn on their own, but not everyone has that same entrepreneurial spirit, and everyone handles stress very differently. And then lastly, we have facilities and equipment, and this might entail space limitations, your expansion plans, sourcing of equipment, and knowing the cost of materials and services that you might have to offer. And then the last major stressor that small businesses and startups go through, of course, will be marketing. And there was a wise tip that a president from another meal delivery service startup that I met while I was working at Sweet Pea. And he shared with me that if you're not a marketing company as a small business, it's going to be very tough, because this is a very fast-paced area of business, and it's going to be constantly ever changing due to technological advancements, demographics, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources for a team to really hone down on that marketing plan. And if you've already been in business for more than 6 months, you'll know that marketing trends can change within a matter of months. And again, these are just three main stressors that I listed. So I'd like to know, what are some other stressors in your life professionally and personally that you're currently dealing with right now? So please go ahead and share that in the chat box. And I asked this during today's webinar because I also want you as a business owner to think about the stressors. I think we as business owners often suppress the stress in our life in order to get through our list of to-do items. And we often forget that we are also humans. And unfortunately, we're not robots, even though robots are slowly entering our lives, and we're learning how to work through them. But we do need to find healthy ways to cope with our stress. Otherwise, it can lead to detrimental outcomes in our business, the employees, the teams that we work with, and also our loved ones. So we have here some other stressors: confidence, trying to get clients to lead gen, waiting for grant opportunities and business to come in, alignment with your values, including your health and well-being. So hopefully you're in the right place to address that. Again, lead gen. Yep. So marketing sounds like it's a big piece for a lot of companies here. Very great. Feel free to continue adding in. So, after working for a startup in a small business, I don't know that I'll ever work for a corporation again. I currently still work for a small business now, but the culture that we live and breathe in is constantly moving and evolving, which makes it super exciting. But the downside is that it can also be extremely exhausting to be an entrepreneur. So as we keep throwing things on the wall, we also have to ask ourselves what's happening to the human brain and the body. So you and your team may look like the photo on the left, but my challenge to you today is to avoid normalizing the chaos, the hustle, the busyness of startup and small business culture, because in order to have a successful business, we need to have functioning people. Functioning people will provide you with profits. And when people are burnt out and constantly stressed, it will cost you more money in the long run, and potentially you may end up with a failing business. So let's learn more about what the burnout cycle looks like. This cycle was put together by Nick Petrie, an expert researcher on leadership, resilience, and burnout prevention. And Petrie states that there are three different levels of burnout that people will go through when they enter in this cycle. And it's based on very similar to when someone gets a physical burn. So people will either come out more resilient and grow from these different levels of burn, or they may encounter very severe trauma. So, the first degree burns that we see here include high periods of acute stress, employees feeling overwhelmed from time to time, but also continuing to work effectively. Your second degree burns will result in first degree burns happening more frequently over time, especially if employees don't address it. They will eventually reach a state of chronic stress and also fatigue. And employees will then start to have decreased motivation and effectiveness. And people with second degree burns may benefit from a vacation, and that might change their level of stress. But based on Petrie's theory, rest is not enough for individuals who are encountering second degree burns. And individuals at this level should actually start to seek mental health support because they're entering into this sort of survival mode, and people may either need to change themselves via their mindset. For example, maybe approaching problem solving a little bit differently. They may need to change their way of working, like maybe transitioning to different responsibilities, or they may even need to find a different workplace where they need to find a change of positions or jobs. And then lastly is our third degree burn. And here, both the individual and also the organization must make drastic changes like considering changes to the employee to potentially drive them towards a career change, and that coupled with seeking out help from a counselor or a therapist, taking time away from work for an extended period of time is also going to help. And individuals who actually stick around will often lead to post traumatic stress at this stage. And at the third degree level burn, it's important to note that at this stage, when employees are experiencing this full burnout stage, their mind and body starts to shut down. And it's going to be too late to start to implement workplace wellness initiatives because programs and apps aren't going to be effective because they'll need a more drastic intervention. So now that we understand the different levels of burnout, let's take a look at the future of what happens. And Petrie's research outlines four different potentials for individuals after burnout. Um, throughout any of these different levels of burnout, we start to notice and see a decrease in employee performance, low morale in the workplace or team culture, higher employee turnover, and employees that do make it through go through one of two pathways that you see here on the last circle in red. So the post traumatic stress or PTS and their survival mode is one pathway. And employees in these two states are less likely to grow from burnout due to the emotional stress. So, again, this is where employees will need to make a change either in their workplace, their responsibilities, or just have a different career path in general. The second pathway is the pathway where employees will have the most transformative path. And this includes resilience recovery and also burnout growth. And individuals that experience this will grow not only professionally, but also personally. And it's important to note that everyone handles stress very differently. So there are some employees that might enter that first degree burn and recover very quickly. There might be some employees who enter the third degree burn and still make it out okay. But again, it's important to note everyone responds differently and it's also very individualized. And burnout does happen in every industry at every level, from C suite all the way to employees at the front line, from small to large organizations. So, when we as humans encounter emotional distress professionally, it affects our mental health, right? More notably, what ends up happening is we start to suffer from anxiety and depression. And this is the point that I'm getting at with the burnout cycle, because the National Alliance um, on Mental Illness conducted a workplace survey last January that was focused on full time employees who worked at companies with over 100 employees. And they found this staggering statistic that about half of employees reported feeling burned out in the past year because of their job. And 30% of employees reported feeling overwhelmed, and it made it hard to do their job. So, as we look further into the headlines in the past 3 years, we see how workplace culture plays a role in our human life. How many of you have heard of the term karoshi? Just curious. You can react to it. Okay, I'll share a little bit more about it. So, karoshi is a Japanese term that translates to overwork death, which has a long-standing history, and it's also now prevalent in the US. So, take a look at it. If you do a search engine on that term, you'll find a ton of different articles, and it dates back to years ago, like about a decade ago. So, karoshi is defined as working more than 55-hour work weeks. Okay. So you can check this off of your personal list. So if you're, experiencing any of this, it's time to take a check on your mental health as well. So defined as working for more than 55-hour work weeks, very high intense pressure in the workplace, very limited work-life balance, and it's also characterized by extreme levels of stress, which then ultimately leads to cerebral or brain and heart disease, as well as mental disorders. And this is not only a clinical disease, but it's also a social issue, because when you look at the clinical side of it, some of these individuals go undiagnosed. And undiagnosed conditions often means individuals might be out in society and operating and functioning with, a mental health condition. There was some research done through the World Health Organization and International Labor Organization in 2023, and the study revealed that in 2021, there were 750,000 deaths due to the Karoshi syndrome globally. So you can see that, through these headlines, that there are many individuals that are taking their lives due to some of the stressors in the workplace. And very, very scary statistic. And so when we look at the economic impact that depression and anxiety has on our economy, $1 trillion are lost in productivity. And these numbers reflect absenteeism, employee turnover, and also medical costs caused by mental health. So I'm going to ask you now, have you ever experienced burnout? Oh, wow, look at all the yeses. Surprise. Yeah. Stage 3. Yes. Um, I'm really glad that everyone's applying some of the knowledge that they're learning here. And that was really, really heavy content. And I hope that I didn't increase your blood pressure through sharing those statistics with you. But let's take a deep breath. Um, and, if you have experienced burnout, I'm just curious, how long have you been going through it? And what are you doing differently now? Okay, yep, someone left the place of employment. Yep, yep, very good. Well, let's shift gears and let's start to think about solutions now that you see the impact that burnout has. And I love a good meme. And this meme here is through Wellable Weekly, and I subscribe to their newsletter. If you don't, I highly recommend it. It's a good read, and they have really good memes on their page. But um, this meme is, I don't want to ignore that pizza parties are great. I love pizza. But a pizza party isn't going to get to the root cause of burnout. So let's take a look deeper on how we might address the root cause of burnout and some strategies to help you. So, implementing wellness initiatives does take strategy, and in order for it to work effectively in the workplace, it's going to be different for every organization based on your employee demographics and also your organizational objectives. So I'm not going to go through these two next slides and go through the list of organizational objectives, but I will tell you that when you have a business and a company that has objectives that also align with your employees' work environment, it will lead to sustainable growth. So as business owners, whether you're just starting up or you've owned a small business for quite some time, it's important to align what it is that you have in terms of your goals for the organization, and then how does that translate over to your employees' well-being. So that's the first set here, and I will provide a copy of the presentation, and it will be available on YouTube if you want to pause and copy some of these organizational objectives. And so again, this list is not meant for you to like select all of these organizational objectives and say, oh, I'm going to try and achieve everything. It's meant for you to pick 2 to 3 that align well with your organization. And you might change that, in 3 years or the following year when your business grows or your business expands or goes through a transition. So again, pick 2 or 3 from this list and then align that with some of your programming and the implementation of wellness initiatives, which we'll talk through. So, strategic business value. Back when I started in wellness back in the 2010s, wellness was really a nicety for businesses and organizations. But now there is actual research showing a strong direct correlation between healthy people and also healthy profit. There are this chart that you see here was from a study conducted by University of Oxford, and it showed that companies that prioritized well-being outperformed stock market benchmarks. So Nasdaq, the S&P 500, and the Russell 3000. And the logos that you see there are those top 10 companies out of the 100 well-being companies that were surveyed. And this study was done through an online survey through Indeed, and they conducted thousands and thousands of surveys and individuals who worked for these different companies. So again, another number for you if you're a numbers person is to look at this chart and to see that there is research behind it, and it is now showing a return on investment for companies to invest in wellness. And you can see here that during that period of the pandemic, what that drastic change was like between the January 2021 on the left side of the chart compared to now, still outperforming those other companies. And then as a testimonial, here's a local Rochester business owner, Katie Lawley, speaking to wellness for her organization, Simutech Group. They're no longer considered a small business, they're a large business, but they are still growing. And you can see that consistent stress does not go away, even as a large company. And Katie states that if employees don't have an effective way to manage their stress, they're more prone to burnout. And for her, the two returns on investments, or as we like to call them here at Smola Consulting, value on investment, is that employees um, will reduce their stress. There's better team communication. They also see a positive impact on turnover. Employees are more healthy, happy, engaged, energized. And most importantly, employees are going to stick around for a longer period of time due to that loyalty that they have with the company. So let's talk about how to start. The first step, and this is an acronym ADIME that is actually taken through my education as a dietitian. It's something that we use in a clinical setting, and I think there are many applications to the ADIME method that's used here. So the first step is really to assess your organization. If you're a one-man business right now, assess yourself. Are you modeling what your future employees do? Okay. If you have employees on your team, consider conducting a survey or having a focus group with your organization to discuss topics that, that are really important to employees, sometimes hard for employers to listen to, but really important for employees to feel heard and to feel that their employer cares for them. The next step is the determine a diagnosis. And this is where we get to the root cause of some of the issues that are happening within the workforce related to well-being. For example, is there a high employee turnover rate? And what is the cause of that? Why is the company not attracting the top talent? Again, these are questions that eventually, if you start to assess the organization, assess yourself, you can come up with a diagnosis, and you can use those organizational objectives to help guide that diagnosis. Next piece is the fun piece, in my opinion, is implementing the intervention. And most organizations and most people tend to jump to providing an intervention without assessing and diagnosing the issue. And this is where there's that disconnect between maybe employees engaging in some of the programs versus, being super engaged and understanding that, oh, my employee is listening to what I need and they're implementing what I want. And some of the questions that you might ask here is, could there be better systems in place to reduce stress for employees? Understanding what is most important to your employees. And again, this is variable for every organization. For example, if you have a younger workforce of millennials and Gen Zers, there's research that shows that these individuals are more likely to want work flexibility over healthy food and having, healthy snacks or a gym membership because they likely already have those things. And then lastly, we want to monitor and evaluate. So as your business changes, you'll want to consider reassessing because some of these environmental changes will cause shifts in what employees want and need throughout the time they're with your company. And then the next strategy that we like to implement with the clients that we work with is to encourage them to have a wellness committee. And this list that you see here is a guide of how you might want to start your wellness programming via a committee. Um, Having a committee gives your employees a sense of ownership in their well being. And when you also encourage colleagues to care for one another, it also creates a sense of loyalty, trust, and also purpose beyond what their role might be. So, some examples of how to start a wellness committee, consider meeting quarterly to start, Make sure that you define roles and responsibilities of individuals. If you have one or two, make sure that you have those roles and responsibilities set out. That way, there's clarity in what people are doing. Again, aligning that organizational objective to what employees want, and then creating program and initiatives that align to those things in number two. Incentivizing both externally and internally. The internal incentivization comes through education. The external incentivization comes through rewards, such as maybe some time paid off, and I'll share additional examples, but um, paid off, little branded things for the company, maybe a jacket, a t-shirt, a hat. And then the internal incentivization might be things related to how might the employee use their retirement benefits. So financial wellness education, how might the employee, you know, learn how to increase their well-being related to their occupation or their job. You might provide them with additional training for the job. That's a form of incentivization as well. And then lastly, making sure that you track your KPIs. So looking at engagement, registration, participation, and getting some of those testimonials. That way you can get that feedback to understand, are these wellness initiatives, are these programs effective for your population? And as a guide to the types of programming that you should focus on, I often will recommend one of these six pillars, or maybe two, or maybe three, depending on what your population needs. But these six pillars have been shown to reduce depression, anxiety, and also some of the leading causes of death, like heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancers. So when you're going through your programming, you might list, what's most important to you in chronological order when it comes to these six pillars of lifestyle medicine or these six pillars of wellness. Do you want to work on, your physical activity? Do we need more social connection, which is a really important piece, especially with the remote workforce? More employees are wanting that social connection. So, again, as a guide for you to develop programming that is not always just food and physical activity, because that's what comes to mind. There are other factors, and sometimes these may also blend in with one another as well. And then some really low to high cost options for you. These are examples of ways that you can start investing and providing benefits through wellness that won't break your budget. And, if you do have a budget, consider the options on the right-hand side. Most times, a blend of the two will be most effective. And you also want to be consistent with these offerings and include it in your wellness policy handbook if you have one, or make sure that it's somewhere where it's visible to employees, because when employees see it, they're going to make sure that they take advantage of some of these wellness offerings that you have to offer. So, free to low cost options include little things like encouraging micro breaks, peer recognition systems. You might do, when I was working at Highland Hospital, there was a board that we had, and that board had little note cards on there. And so it allowed for employees to write thank yous and show gratitude to one another. And if you received recognition from a colleague, what would happen is you would be entered in to win a raffle giveaway. And so at the end of the month, we got together for a meal and ended up doing a raffle. And so you would spin the wheel and you would get, different items from the wheel, and you would get to pick. So it was a nice way to be recognized. And then they added the incentive piece, the reward, which was an additional bonus. A walking meeting, so encouraging employees to take walking meetings when the weather is nice, of course. Paid time off for participation in wellness programming. Many companies think that this is a cost to them, but it's actually a low cost, especially if you have other employees that can cover, or if you know that you have employees that are taking off, or set some boundaries or guidelines around when they can take that time off, you're not really losing money if you can have that time covered for them. And then, of course, implementing wellness policies like making sure that employees have breaks, making sure that they have lunch breaks, encouraging them to maybe take a remote day or a flex day once a month or twice a month if you're an in office organization. And then when we look at the mid to high cost options, of course, offering access to food and snacks at work. In our office at Smola Consulting, we have a little lounge, and Steve, our owner, and also our operations manager, will go out and stock the fridge with healthy snacks. We always have like some sort of a hummus. We have like guacamole in the fridge. We have little like cheese things for people that want it. And then there's always some granola, a plant based milk option. And it's open. If we wanted to include other things on the list, um, we'll always go around and we'll ask each other, like, what do you want to have for snack options? And then investing in applications. So these are applications related to your phone and technology. So some of you might be familiar with some of those applications, like Calm. Calm is a partner of ours, and we do utilize them. Excelis is also a partner of ours. They're a local insurance medical carrier in the area, and they have tons of applications where, once you start to engage with them or use them as a carrier, they have different apps like Headspace. They have this app called ThriveWell, where employees can get money for going through different journeys and challenges through their application. They have another app called Wellvy, which helps employees understand, whether or not they need surgery before they go into it. So lots of really creative apps out there that you can invest in, and it doesn't cost much to invest in those things. So that may, fall into the free to low or the mid to high cost. Work with a consulting agency. I may be a little biased, but working with a wellness consulting agency like Smola Consulting can offer you a magnitude of different resources and options. The clients that we work with have free access to all of our wellness consultants, and we have a background that ranges from mindfulness, meditation, yoga to food, nutrition, and fitness. And so what we do is we go on site, we present to the organization and their teams on these different topics that they're interested in. In addition to that, we can also provide you with an assessment of your organization to help you understand what types of wellness offerings should you offer, and what are some KPIs that you can start to engage in. How do we get that buy-in from leadership to implement some of these programs? Events through the wellness committee. We have some clients that will do wellness fairs for their employees. Again, this is once you start to become a larger business, is having different events, and it doesn't even have to be a wellness fair. You might even have an outing for your team at, maybe an indoor golf place, or you might do a little travel trip locally with your team. And then lastly, here I have hire experts in our area. We have tons of fitness, nutrition, um, mental health coaching experts in the area that you can tap into. Some of those resources might even be free. So make sure that you look them up. And if you want me to provide you with a few, I'm happy to. Just shoot me an email and I'll provide my contact information at the end here. And then as some final key points for you to highlight why we want to develop wellness as a core investment to our foundation for business is that, people and productivity will give you greater profits. It increases employee retention. It saves you time hiring and training, which is an exorbitant cost for many employers. It also makes you more competitive, a competitive employer in the marketplace, therefore increasing and giving you higher quality applicants. It also improves work culture and morale, where employees have a sense of belonging and purpose. And wellness also tells people that you value them first over the dollar signs. I mean, the dollar signs are very important, but if you, swap that, we start to forget about the human side. And that's when employees start to burn out and feel like they're not cared for in an organization. And then lastly, wellness impacts your bottom line. There is a statistic out there done by the McKinsey Company. People spend about 90,000 hours or 45 years at work. So we as leaders here, sitting here in this room, have the responsibility to think about how we shape the future of not only our business, but also our society. And so I have two more slides. So I'd like to just end on this little quote here. So wellness and well-being are essential infrastructures to business strategy. A sound well-being strategy is a sound business strategy. Being able to manage human capital with the same level of discipline that we manage our financials is really important, and it's a strategic necessity. And I want to end here. So there are two employee examples here. The employee on the left, is employee one with poor sleep, constantly attends back-to-back meetings, skips breakfast, lunch, orders takeout for dinner. Nothing wrong with that. But if you order it, time over time, there can be potentially issues and repercussions to that. Alcoholic drinks nightly, working after kids are in bed, impaired thinking. So all of these things will lead to impaired thinkings, employees being less creative, employees also being at higher risk for cardiometabolic and cognitive decline, and also, as we discussed and went over, depression and anxiety. On the other hand, if you have employees or if you yourself would like to be here, this is where employees are higher performing. You have top performing employees, lower risk of chronic disease. So think about which employee would you like to hire, right or left side? Which employee would you like to keep, right or left side? And then which employee do you want to represent? Because ultimately, as a business owner, employees look up to you and what you model for them. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions. Thank you, Kelly. Oh, Tara had asked the key performance indicators, so examples. So some of those things for a small business might be engagement. So if you have a wellness program that you're implementing, what you might want to do is to track registrations, the number of people that register. And then after that, from there, we will track then participation. So how many employees are actually engaging in the content that you're sharing. Okay, those are just some examples. Whitney, go ahead and unmute yourself if you have a question.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I am really impressed with you and your presentation. Thank you, Jen. I just wanted to make a comment that I think it's possible to not be working 55 hours a week or more and doing all the right things to take care of yourself and, not fit the typical burnout, uh, description and still be burned out. If you have challenges with people or setting boundaries or dealing with stresses in your life outside of work. And so I just want to always advocate for employee assistance programs too.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that is huge. Employee assistance programs are great, and that's something that I'm trying to push with, some of the clients that I work with. Often companies um, have employee assistance programs that are free to all employees. Whitney, I'm just curious, do you know of employee assistance programs that are available to small business owners out there that you can share?
I don't, and I'm a one-person company now, so I have to just avail myself of what I have. It's a very good question. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will see if I can locate a resource out there to see if I can share it with everyone here. That way you have it in your tool belt. I'm sure there is something out there.
Yeah, and maybe you mentioned EAP in your presentation, so I didn't mean to imply you didn't cover that, but
All good. Thank you. Thank you for your
yeah.
insights, and yeah, thank you for sharing your example and advocating for, not being in that chaotic work culture because I think it's a result of some of the leaders in, the industry and business, and we try and model them because they are very successful. And I think we need to look at other models, right? And we can also be our own model in the outcome of what we want our business to look like. Tara had shared, please list the apps mentioned. So Calm Health is one. So Calm recently actually just extended and changed well, they still offer Calm for Business, which is the Calm that everyone has access to. They also now have Calm for Health. Calm for Health actually has an assessment piece where you as a person can actually go through the assessment without seeing an actual therapist. So the assessment was created by psychologists and psychiatrists that are on their team. And from that wellness assessment, if you take that assessment, it'll steer you towards resources where you can find additional programs. The Calm Health side is an organization based app. So I don't know that individuals will have access to it, but you do have access to Calm. The other ones that were similar to that, Headspace is another one. Insight Timer is one that I really like to use for myself. It's free. Um, I think Headspace and Calm also have free versions too. Personify Health is the other application that Excelis uses that you can check out. Thank you, Tara. All right, I'm just going to read some of these comments here. Incorporate self-care into individual development plans. Yes to that. A high yes. Create community. Um, yep. Produce co-op memberships. Gratitude boards. Yep. Shared affirmation. Yeah, Headspace is a really good app. I really like that app as well. Yeah. Um, Tara had shared messaging that wellness is a priority and a part of strategic growth plan, and that equals sustainability, definitely 100%. And again, that consistency is important. Thank you for the comments. Thank you, Richard.
There was one question, for those of us who are enrolled in SEEP, how do we get our verification tracking form signed off?
I wonder if that is a Fatine question that we can ask. So Dina, can we get back to you on that? Oh, someone just, I think,
Sure.
shared. Did someone just share it in the chat? Oh no, that's the basic resilience scale. Lily, do you mind copying that question and then we can pass it over to Fatine?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Any questions or comments that anyone wants to share? It's an open forum. This is a safe space. Hopefully, I've made you comfortable to be able to share a little bit more about what you're going through as a small business owner. And again, make sure that you constantly reassess, reflect on yourself because the success of your organization starts with you. Thank you, Tara.
Right, are there any more questions?
I think it's Sierra said She cannot communicate for a while. Sierra, I don't know if you're able to unmute yourself or put in the chat box, but hopefully you all can see my contact information. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Smola Consulting, we work with small to large organizations related to benefits, primarily medical benefits and any ancillary products. So as your business grows or as you start to think about, medical benefits for yourself, we can assist with that. And there isn't a cost to work for us because any broker commission fees are actually baked into insurance plans already. So whenever you're going straight to a carrier, um, that commission goes directly to them. Whereas, like if you worked with a broker like ours, we do get the commission, but again, it's already baked into the plan. So either way, you're either paying the carrier or you're paying the broker. So highly recommend that you work with a broker because then you can get that individualized support. All of our employees, we're a team of about 8 people. We're all pretty high level employees. We have one individual on our team that is highly familiar and certified to help people work through the marketplace plans. So feel free to reach out to us and we can further guide you if you have any questions related to benefits or wellness. Thank you, everyone.
Oh yeah, thank you, Jen. Can you send me or Melissa your slide deck so we can send it out to everyone who attended? And this will be on YouTube. We will send out a link to everyone when we get it.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, and I just wanted to plug, the library is doing a program tomorrow, at the library from 1 to 4 for National Small Business Week called Start Smart, Protecting Your Business and Understanding Your Customers, if anyone is interested in that. All
Thank
right,
you
thank
for
you,
attending,
everyone.
everyone. Be well.
Stop this.